Tesla's parking challenges belie a firm is in very bad shape, along with a look at safety features of the Model X is another thing we cover for today. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. Obviously, a little bit of a technical difficulty there. We had an opportunity to visit Tesla's headquarters facility, as well as the manufacturing plant in Silicon Valley this week. And there are several stories that we'll be covering over the next few days related to that trip, and this is one of them. So, by the way, if you enjoy the show, please take time to like and subscribe. And we encourage you to consider our Patreon page as well for trading ideas and tips that will help you to make more money off of the Tesla miracle. So today's story is kind of version 2.0 of a story we did about a year and a half ago. What happened is that there's actually a battle between Tesla, CNBC, and Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal and other properties of the Wall Street Journal. And in essence, the logic behind this is one of the reasons why Tesla stock price has actually gone so high. There are all these analysts who are backed up by certain large media organizations, and they've been presenting a narrative about Tesla, and their naysaying, if you will, resulted in huge spikes of the stock because a lot of people avoided Tesla, but it turns out that the company was extremely solid, and their anticipatory bad news really didn't work as planned. In fact, what it did is resulted in very steep increases in the value of the stock over time. So we had a chance to go by the headquarters of Tesla. There's a place called Deer Creek. So we're going to include some video of this under a separate show because this is a live feed. And so what happened with Deer Creek is that it turns out that there's actually, Tesla has been expanding its headquarter facilities in that location. Now, why is this significant? Well, when we went there a year and a half, two ago, it was chaos. A very small building for the headquarters, too many cars based on the number of people you're trying to get into a very small 3,000 square foot building. And now that we've had a chance to step back and look at this, the chaos has a good reason and there's a good logic to it, which is what we want to cover as the first part of our story today. So, as you may recall, Stanford University has a facility. So back in the 50s, the university decided to build something called the Stanford Research Park. And in the case of this research facility or park, the idea was to have a space where companies could do 99-year leases for their companies and in essence operate in those spaces for an extended period of time, giving students and others a place that they could go to potentially for work. So over the years, this research park has housed the headquarters of Hewlett-Packard, a number of other huge companies, and sits right next to Stanford University. Elon elected to locate his headquarters here, and initially the thought I had was it kind of doesn't make any sense because the per square foot cost of locating the Stanford Research Park makes it one of the highest cost locations for office facilities anywhere in the United States, perhaps anywhere in the world. And so the question mark became, well, wait a second, if you have 250 acres with some land perhaps next to the current factory, you could locate headquarters along with potentially engineering and other things right there. And now you have everything under one roof and everything sort of flows together naturally and easily. The one problem with this concept is one of the competitive advantages of Tesla is that the way certain companies like Apple and Tesla use Stanford University's students and professors is more like having the benefit of one of the best research facilities in the world at your company, but you don't have to pay for it. Meaning that if you have student interns, if you have professors who are at the leading edge of certain technologies, and particularly Elon was supposed to do a PhD in material science, but really didn't like the fact that he didn't get an opportunity to bring those products or services to market versus just research on them, is why he left after a week. But it was kind of interesting because I kind of had a, there's a good friend of mine, a friend of our show, his name is Damien, who's a Stanford PhD in mechanical engineering. And Damien and I had an exchange this morning where he was like, I was like, man, I see why Tesla located next to Stanford's campus. And then he sent me a note saying that he's actually seen Elon stand up, grab the mic from somebody on the stage and say, what you're talking about doesn't mean anything. And so my response to him was, he definitely probably did that. But Elon is a big fan of the people who actually deliver unique ideas and solutions to problems, get his undying respect. For those who simply carry heavy credentials without something meaningful to add to the work conversation, he's not impressed by that. So I also pointed out to Damien that if you go back and look at some of the greatest work in the last 100 years for PhDs at elite universities, many slash most of the key innovations on the science side tend to be from really hungry young grad students who haven't finished their PhDs yet. So it's supposedly between 23 and about 27 or 28 is sort of some of the best throughput of our best scientists. And typically they hadn't finished their PhDs yet when they were putting out some really, really great work that they were eventually well known for. So, so bottom line is that Elon is definitely performance oriented for people with credentials, but is not just impressed by credentials. And so there's big discussions about, do you need an MBA that he's talked about, or do you need a PhD in this case? Hey, can you have an impact, make a difference, cause forward progress in the type of work that he deems valuable? So I bring up all this because uh, one of the phenomenons that's happened in Silicon Valley on and off in a number of different industries, and I just know certain stories well. One of them is called Apple Computer. There's a professor named David Kelly, and he had a company called DKD Design, and then he evolved that into, there's another company that he currently runs. But one of the things that David would do is when he teaches his design class in the mechanical engineering department at Stanford, he would identify the brightest students and minds in his class and invite them to initially do internships and eventually start working full time at his non-Stanford job, which was DKD Design, which has a new name, but it's still heavily into industrial design and making a big difference. So if you look at the product portfolio of Apple, for a certain period of time back in the 80s into the 90s, almost every Apple product of any significance was being designed by David Kelly with these former grad students from Stanford primarily as his work base, but also interns, et cetera. And they put out some really beautiful work in design that made a huge difference for Apple during this period. Are they still working together? I'm not sure, but this story was designed to really get us back over to discussion of what's going on with Tesla. So the issue is that when you think of Stanford, we've got a great MBA program, but we also have an excellent engineering program that stretches a lot across a lot of fields. I was really impressed to hear Elon in his last major interview with Sandy Munro talk about the fact that he was a material science major. And when you listen to the intimacy with which he goes through all the technical challenges associated with building products and what can happen as you have rapid manufacturing occurring and the potential for all kinds of craziness to happen with metals bending in the wrong direction as you're trying to move quickly, et cetera. The overall conclusion is that at his heart, he is really a material scientist. and you add on the programming ability and other things he can do, including the business stuff, and it's sort of a unique set of skills, which gets him a unique set of results, as we've seen over time. So if if you walked in and said, should Tesla locate its headquarters slash one of its key engineering hubs right next to Stanford, the answer would be bad idea. Why? Some of the most expensive real estate in the world, definitely in California, because of where it's located. On the other hand, when you amortize the value of those brilliant people um, from from their ability to add value while they're still in grad school or just finished it from a place like Stanford, you all of a sudden are in an interesting situation where you're like, well, wait a second, you guys are getting extremely cheap advancements in your engineering space from the exposure to these scientists at places like Stanford, and many of the Stanford professors collaborate with other professors around the world in their field. So all of a sudden it becomes, oh, that's some expensive spaces, you don't want to be in them, but then you switch around and say, wow, for all the value that they represent, you could sort of go through and look at what Tesla does uniquely that allows them to deliver solutions. So as a result, Tesla didn't end up with a beautiful parking lot that they could sit in for the headquarters, et cetera, but the access to all those scientists that have added a lot of value that's small and large over time, in the ability of grad students that maybe just starting out in their academic careers to come and add huge value has totally made it worthwhile. And as a result, we were kind of surprised to go by and see that they've not just taken the 3,000 square foot building they had initially with crazy parking, they've actually added another giant space next to it that is maybe 4 times the size, but now includes many engineers. So if you look at the front of the building, there are large numbers of test vehicles that are in process by Tesla, so that you kind of have this interface between great students and professors with great engineers. And as you have those internships work out well, those folks are being taken on as employees as well. So it's almost a testing and training ground for future employees without necessarily having to burn huge amounts of cash to get a hold of these folks and the brilliance they represent. So hats off to Tesla on this. Yes, Daimler and GM and all these other companies have terrific parking situations because they're located in wide open spaces, but there actually can be strategic competitive advantages by locating yourself next to one of the premier R&D research facilities in the world in the form of Stanford Research Park. So I think that what I'm looking forward to is more of what we've seen, which is it's hard to find a parking space at Tesla, and they're doing a lot of things with shuttle buses, and you can bike in or near the train spurs, all kinds of things to address this, both at the factory as well as at the headquarters. But there is a strategic, huge advantage to being there that is translated into huge differences for the company and its productivity. And I think it's worth noting, and therefore we decided to sort of cover it today because it's not that obvious, but it makes a huge difference. The final thing we wanted to dive in today briefly is I had a run-in with a CHP officer, and we were talking about Teslas, and I asked him, is it the speed that's impressive? He said, not really. Most of the people who are Tesla owners tend to be well organized, insurance, everything's fine, and not necessarily abusively overrunning the power and speed capabilities of the car. But what he did discuss with me was the fact that he had a chance to notice the impact that a Model X had during head-on collision. So evidently 2 vehicles were going in opposite directions at 50 miles an hour. One of them was a Model X. The other driver was actually on drugs in Del Mar, California, and he swerved directly head-on into a Model X. And the opposing vehicle, I thought it was a Mustang, ended up, in essence, cut in half by the Model X. The Model X driver walked away with no injuries. I don't know if what the result was for the other individual, but he pointed out that the frame that it takes to support the batteries that are in a Model X makes that vehicle extremely solid. And so therefore it can run into things and blow up the things it runs into very quickly. and allow the driver of that X to actually walk away fairly unscathed. So I was kind of impressed by, you know, the crumple zones and all the things that are being done technology-wise for state safety. But he said that it was awesome to see the results. And then he also reviewed the fact that the owner allowed the data from the vehicle to be provided to the CHP so that it could help in the investigation of the what occurred, and it confirmed, you know, everything I just described. So another benefit that comes with any kind of an accident you might be in a Tesla. So we want to say hats off to Tesla. Well done in these two areas, and we look forward to continuing our stream of info regarding interviews that we just completed or just visits we did in the Bay Area. So without further ado, please note that we wanted to encourage you on the 25 legless per day per leg to ensure you don't have any uh, issues with knees and so forth as you age. We also want to encourage you to think about the 5-2 or some other diet as a way to increase mental acuity as well as better manage your overall health. Number 3 is if you're going to do lovemaking, a very small salad or something of that ilk might be a good idea because this actually facilitates more blood flow away from your stomach to other extremities. That would be helpful in that process. So wanted to highly recommend you consider that. Also wanted to note that 30 or better SPF in a sunny situation is a great idea. And we also wanted to note to you that playing a musical instrument or something of that ilk to keep your mental faculties flowing as you're aging or heading into the retirement space is really helpful in terms of maintaining your mental health as well. At any rate, I want to thank you again for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, German, au revoir, French, Lehitro, Hebrew, Hoda Hafiz, Farsi, Zdravstvuyte, hello in Russian, Ni hao ma, hello in Chinese, Konbanwa, hello in Japanese, and hey do Swedish, good day Australia, and in Jamaica we say enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for joining us. Best of luck in a tough trading period for Tesla right now because we are sort of the overhang of what's going to happen with Bitcoin seems to still be going on. We're hopeful for the best here, but we wish you best of luck in this process as well. At any rate, have a great day. Bye for now, and look forward to your input and comments and an ability to sort of deliver quality info that's useful. Please take time to like and subscribe.